Okay.
Yeah. Well, lovely to meet you again. So I'll say Sir Richard Faull, is that correct?
That's fine. Yeah, that's good.
Excellent. So it is an absolute honour to be able to interview you today. You're one of my superheroes. And the reason being is I've worked with Parkinson's before, and I've also have my own family relationship with Parkinson's. My mother and my auntie have it as well. So it's almost like I've looked to your advice and your guidance for many years. But today I was wanting to ask you a few questions and be able to understand a little bit more about your brain and why this is particularly of interest to you. So I'll firstly start by, I did a little bit of a Google search, and your title, Sir Richard Lewis Maxwell Faull, born in 1945. And you're a New Zealand neuroscientist and academic who specialises in neurodegenerative diseases and work for the Centre of Brain Research in the University of Auckland. Is that correct?
I'm director of the Centre for Brain Research, and within the university, I'm a distinguished professor, university distinguished professor.
Fantastic. So this has been your whole life for many years, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, for a long time. I mean, I've been in the university over 40 years now, and of course, but I developed an interest in the brain as a young medical student. Where I saw I grew up in Taranaki, and I was a pretty naive country boy when I went down to medical school in Dunedin and saw the human brain for the first time as a third-year medical student, and I was blown away. I saw this wonderful, folded. I mean, it's got these beautiful folds on the outside, and to me, it just looked beautiful. And we did a full dissection of the human brain. We spent 10 weeks doing that. And I was just amazed that this organ made you who and what you are, your vision in life, your enthusiasm for life, and your memory, your enthusiasm for the future, and enables you to walk, to read, to write, to do all those things. And it's just this 1,500 gram organ. And inside it, there's over 90 billion brain cells talking to each other, and it makes you an individual who is unique. We're all different, and it's all about our brain.
It's almost the power box, isn't it, then, for the body?
It is. You can replace any organ in the body, but you can't replace the brain. And if it's affected by disease, by dementia or Alzheimer's or a tumor or whatever, you will change. You won't be able to do movement, or you'll lose your memory, or you'll change your behavior. And, when you fall in love with someone, you don't fall in love with their heart, you fall in love with their brain. And that's who they are.
That's amazing. It's I don't know if the greeting cards would have actually been able to be, when we would see what we see today in greeting cards with a heart, you'd see them with a brain on the front. Yes.
The heart keeps the brain alive.
Yeah.
And I'll talk more about that when you ask me what's good for brain health. But
good.
But the brain should be on there.
Yes, that's right. There should be. So on that note, can you tell me more about this brain bank?
Well, the brain bank, it's my whole career is sort of serendipity. It just happened.
Yeah.
And so I got an interest in brain research, young medical student, and I found a new pathway. I took a year out. We published it, and that was great. So I decided later on to either do neurosurgery or brain research. And I did neurosurgery briefly and found that we could only work on the outside of the brain. We didn't know how the brain really worked inside. And so I went back and did a PhD on the brain then. Then I started a career, went to the United States, worked for 3 years, and it was all on the rat brain. You could only do experiments on the rat brain. Came back to New Zealand in 1978, set up my little rat brain research lab all by myself.
Yeah.
And studied the pathways which were involved in Parkinson's and Huntington's. And then one day, the professor of genetics came to me and he said, you're working on the basal ganglia. And he said, this is affected in Huntington's disease. And I look after all these patients throughout New Zealand, these families who have Huntington's disease. We know it's caused by a gene. We don't know what the gene is. We can't test for it. And the diagnosis may be wrong because it has Huntington's shares some similar features to Parkinson's. The families would like you to look at the brain of their mum or dad when they die to make sure that a diagnosis is correct. Would you do that? And I said, sure. And so we did that. He'd over the brain, full fix, and we'd do studies on it, cut it up, and do pathology studies and do chemical studies. And we could tell exactly whether it was Huntington's or not. And then we'd ring up and tell the families, write them a letter. And they were so incredibly grateful that this is in 1981 we got the first brain. And then they said, thank you, but keep mum's brain and do research on it. And so that changed me from the rat brain to the human brain. And then we started collecting the brains from people throughout New Zealand with Huntington's disease. And later on, that our results are so interesting there because we found that there's a lot of variation from one person with Huntington's and another, although they had the same gene. And cut a long story short, we found that the variation in the pathology between one person with Huntington's and another person, even from the same family, we found that was reflected in the symptom profile. And so the variation in the symptoms results from variation in the pathology, the way which brain cells die. And so, in a way, by studying a person's brain with a disease, you're studying a model of sort of an experimental model. It varies. And by doing it in reverse, we could then work out what cells have died, and then we could deduce those cells are responsible for this function, which the people were showing. And I never realized until then that we were dealing with it. We had a way of finding out what all the parts of the human brain did. And so we collected more Huntington's brains, got more exciting, and then we started collecting Parkinson's brains and Alzheimer's brains. And in 1994, I realized that we were collecting brains. We knew the families, we knew all the history behind each brain, and it was pretty special. So I went to Neurological Foundation. I said, listen, talked to the CEO, the medical director there, and said, we have collecting this wonderful brain tissue, and it's really a brain bank. Would you fund someone to help me look after it? And we could then call it a Neurological Foundation Brain Bank. So they said, sure. So that's when we launched the Brain Bank, 1994, Neurological Foundation. And since then, it's grown and expanded to involve all these different diseases. But it's, when you come down to it, it's a relationship which we have with the families and also with the doctors in the hospital, because we go to the doctors, whether it be GP or neurologists in the hospital, and we would get aspects of the clinical history, which the family were happy for us to do, and the families tell us their aspects. So we were putting the story of the brain we had before us, adding that to our science, and that was the secret magic that makes our brain bank unique in the world. No other brain bank in the world has such a close relationship with family and with doctors. And so we've been able to unravel many of the secrets of the human brain. And what's interesting is that we collaborate with about 25 groups around the world with the family's consent, send them a bit of brain tissue because they write to us and say, oh, we've heard about your brain bank and we want to work out what's going on in the human brain. We're studying the rat brain. Will you send us a bit of tissue so we can do this? And it's normally stuff which we can't do in New Zealand. So we do it by collaboration. When they write up and publish it, our name goes on that paper, and the ethics of it, the families were very happy with that. And they said things like, oh, it's as if mum or dad lives forever and helping the kids, or mum's getting the travel and death she never had in life. And so we formed this very strong bond, which has been the underpinning of my unexpectedly exciting career in brain research. And it all came from the families. You know, I grew up in Taranaki, a general store my mum and dad had, and we were taught as kids, there was 5 boys in the family, and we used to deliver the groceries, and Dad said, our life is about looking after people. And you know what, that seed was actually what I was doing in my research. So what I learned back home in the little farm in Taranaki, in the general store, was actually producing the success of my research.
Yeah, so it's all about the people, and as you tell me this story, I can imagine the impact this has on families, but also the impact it has on future and our past. It's so important we understand where we've come from, but also we help the future generations understand what they are going to see. And that it's just such a rich role. What a wonderful life you have with sharing these stories.
Well, and the incredible thing about it, we do it in partnership with families and with doctors, So it's not saying, oh, we're wonderful people. No, we're not. We've only been able to do this because of first the most wonderful gift from families. To give the brain to their mum and dad, it's not just, giving you a little bit of skin. It's actually, it's giving what that person is.
Yeah.
And trust it to us. And Māori whānau do the same. So it's more powerful than what we could have ever imagined. And you look back and think, gosh, I could never, in my wildest dreams, I could never have dreamt up a job, a career so incredibly similar. So people say, why do you work all night? I said, well, it's not work, it's love. And when I talk to a family and you tell them something about your research, they get so excited and so grateful, and that makes you feel more committed.
Yeah. So how can we help you at Age Concern New Zealand?
Well, just get the message out there that, we know what helps brain health.
Yep.
Use your brain.
Yep.
And keep it stimulated. That's absolutely critical. Cognitive activity, everything you do to keep your brain alive, whatever your specialty in life is, whether you like reading, writing, or crosswords or whatever, group singing and music is very powerful. It stimulates large parts of the brain. Go to libraries, read books, and knitting. We know knitting helps you slow down dementia, and dancing, and learning multiple languages, but and also physical activity, just doing things. You don't have to go out and run a marathon every day. All you got to do is get off your bum and go and do a little walk down the road each day, 40 minutes or whatever, and enjoy it. You don't do things that you don't enjoy. So, I don't like jogging, but I love walking, and walking is good. And the other thing is diet. Look after your diet. Make sure that every time your heart contracts, 1/5 of the output from the heart goes straight to the brain. So the brain is totally dependent on the heart to be kept alive. And the brain's only 2% of the body, but 20% of the blood goes to the brain. So you need that. You need a healthy heart in order to have a healthy brain. So healthy heart, you need to stop smoking. You need to treat any high blood pressure. Anything that can help your heart will help your brain. Mental activity and physical activity, and we know, as I said before, rich social interaction is good for the brain. Look after your diet. What's good for your heart, like keep those fats down a bit, and the Mediterranean diet is good, and fish is good. That's good for the heart, good for the blood vessels in your heart and your brain. And just drink moderate amounts of alcohol. Cut it down, keep it to 1 or 2 glasses a day, and keep things in balance. And probably most of all, enjoy your life. Get up in the morning and say, thank you, brain, I still know who I am.
Yeah.
And then just go and keep stimulated. Working and interacting with other people, what we call social interaction, is actually critical for your brain. Get outside your brain. Helping other people and getting involved in activities which you mix with other people. You talk, you exchange stories, you do things together, you do play a sport or play a card game. All that interaction stimulates through your visual system, through your touch, and everything else. It stimulates your brain, and you'll feel better. And if you feel better, you are better, and your brain is better. So a lot of it is motherhood and apple pie in a way.
Yeah, but we all need to be reminded of it. And I've learned, even listening to you so far, that actually 20% of my blood supply from my heart goes to my brain. I didn't know that little fact. Do you have any other little facts that everyone might be interested with?
Well, what's really important is when you do exercise, when you do read or what, make sure you got to enjoy it, because we know from animal studies you can take rats, and when you stimulate your brain, you do make new brain cells. We showed that in one of our major findings, and in studies in rats show that rats make new brain cells too, and you can stimulate them with exercise or get them to do to have little mazes they play in and so on. That helps them to make new brain cells. But if you stress them in exercise and really once the stress component gets in there, they actually end up making fewer brain cells.
Oh.
So keep things in moderation, but make sure you actually do what you love doing.
Yeah.
And so you must enjoy it.
Yeah, happiness. Happiness,
yeah.
I hear a lot, that we don't measure happiness and the importance of happiness on our whole body, but especially here on our brain. So that has a big outcome for it.
And the other thing is, reach out to other people. We are social beings. We have clubs.
Mm.
Get involved with clubs. Get involved with aging concern. You're looking after people. Get involved with that, and that will help your brain.
Yes.
Because it takes you out of your mind, and it gives you you're helping people, and that takes you out of your head. It reduces your stress. And when you discuss, you talk about, you think you got problems, well, when you discuss it, they disappear.
Yeah. That's so true. And we met recently, and I was talking about working into your senior years and how important it is to stay with purpose and have a reason to get up every day. Exactly. And be able to meet people and learn new things. And I think that's really important to humans, that we get the best out of our life. But thank you so much, because you've given me a few more little snippets of important facts that I need to take with me in my life.
Well, thank you, and thank Age Concern for what you do for the people of New Zealand, because we need to be advocated for. When you get into these mature years, I never say I'm old, I just say I'm mature. And sometimes people forget that it's all about humanity. Treat everyone as you like to be treated yourself.
Yeah.
And don't minimize them. Don't think because they're deaf or because they have a bit of dementia that they are less of a person. They're not, they're actually more of a person.
Mm.
And so never, ever forget that we're here to help other people. And the more you do that, the better it is for your brain, your heart. You feel better. In 100 years' time, it's not going to matter necessarily how long we live, but it's going to matter what you did with your life.
Yeah, it's so true. And so thank you so much for sharing your snippets of wisdom, but actually just your practical tips on how we can all age better and look after our brain. And I'm going to go and look up the brain bank and see what other information I can learn that I haven't learned here. But is there anything else that you want to share with me before I sign off for the day?
No, I'd probably just, in Aotearoa, New Zealand today, we've got to be thankful where we are in the world.
Yeah.
And when you look at all the stresses and strains overseas, when you see the sorts of problems that on the paper and all the rest of it, we highlight the worst things going on in the society. We don't highlight the things which are so wonderful, which makes this country very special. So we're all very lucky that we can get up in the morning. We can afford. We get food. We can do things. We can do what we want to do. And always, I would tell my children, when you talk to someone, make sure they walk away feeling better to have them talk to you.
Yeah.
Even if you got bad news, you can always package it. You can always make them feel better. And that would change the world completely.
Well, thank you for the philosophy that you share. I think you're an amazing man and have had an amazing life, but you are an amazing connection. And for me today, thank you so much for being that connection.
Absolute pleasure, and look forward to talking again with you soon.
Oh yeah, so I want to stay in regular contact because I want to hear what you're doing next and be able to share that. Some of those things are our new medias, the social media, and we're working with researchers all the time to look at ways that we can improve social connection, reduce loneliness, and it all comes down to one thing you've mentioned is humans. humans are the difference between being remembered and being forgotten.
Exactly. Thank you. Wonderful words.
Well, thank you so much.
Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you as usual. Keep up the great work.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.